Amen. Can't have you closing your eyes for too long today. And then there's a lot of you tired out there. Don't want anyone falling asleep. And we took a break last week from our trek through the book of Luke. And we're going to continue to take a break today. We'll get back to Luke next week. But this morning we're going to be looking at the tail end of the book of Proverbs. So this week, for those of us that have kids in school and whatnot, it's always a busy time because it's end of year and there are tons of concerts and sports things and awards and all of these things. And so there were several things that we had this week that we went to. And of course, I knew this message was coming up, so my ears were kind of perked as I was looking out at the crowd and was listening to how people were responding. And, there are basic ways, numerous ways, and basic what I would call levels of applause that people give at concerts and awards and things like that. There's the basic, the most basic is the smile. You just kind of smile. And, that's level one of applause. Level two of applause is you just kind of give a quick, and then you're done. And that was, good job. All right, let's move on. and then there's the extended applause. Good job, yeah, good job. And then there's the rigorous, loud clapping. You got to do the loud clapping, right? Everybody awake now? And then finally, the final level, if something was like really, really over the top good or long-lasting honor, there's the standing ovation. The standing ovation, where you just get up and you're clapping and you see everyone just kind of stand and then this is something bigger than just the natural applause, just the natural gratitude. This is like something big. So in these couple of events that we had this week, there was a lot of smiles. There were a lot of small claps. There were a lot of longer claps. There were even several, loud, extended claps. There weren't really any standing ovations. I was waiting for it. And at one point, in one of the concerts that we had this week, I almost decided just as a social experiment to just get up and see if everyone would follow me do standing applause. But I didn't end up doing it. I chickened out. But I just was like, I just want to see people just rise, and so maybe I'll just do this. But I didn't do it. So there was one or two people that stood up at some point at the course, and I really thought at the awards thing for seniors, there's this one moment where there was this administrator person that had been working in the school for like 35 years. I really thought, I was just waiting for it. I really thought people were going to get up and give the standing ovation, but not even for that did they give a standing ovation. I was a little bit shocked. I was like, well, come on, people. Man, you're hard. What's it take to get you to stand up and give applause? Well, let me show you what it takes to get a standing ovation. We are in the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, tail end. Now, before I read this, let me just give a little bit of a clue, because I feel like I have to do this because, this is one of those quintessential passages that pastors like to bring up on Mother's Day. And so every once in a while, every 4 or 5 years or so, I bring out this passage. And over the course of the 16 years that I've been here, I've gotten some comments from some moms saying, we don't like this passage of Scripture for Mother's Day because, you read through this entire part of the passage, and a lot of moms feel like, man, this woman's perfect. This woman being described here is perfect, and I'm not perfect, and it makes me feel like I can't measure up, and I hate this passage. So let me assuage your angst about this passage. First of all, we're not going to read the entire passage. We're just going to look at the end. But second of all, I want you to understand the heart of this passage as it's described as the wife of noble character. This isn't meant to be here's what you have to live up to. Here's everything that you have to do to be a wonderful, amazing, perfect mom. That's not what this passage is all about. This passage really is about celebrating and honoring motherhood. It's what it's really about. And throughout the passage, the one writing the proverb here he's giving examples of a godly woman. And you have to understand that this is being written from the perspective not of a mom. This isn't being written by a mom who sees all of her flaws and all of her mistakes and all of those different things. It's from the perspective of a son who looks at his mom and thinks that she's just the best mom in the whole world. That's the perspective that we see as we read through this proverb. And he brings out, and again, we're not going to read this whole proverb, so he brings out in the midst of this that she takes care of the family in a way that only mom can, that she supports everyone, and that in many ways, mom is the glue that kind of holds the family together. And she thrives in doing what she is good at. You may not be good at the things that particular mom is described as doing. She's doing the things that she's good at and succeeding at, and she's working hard. And so then we come to the end of the passage. This is the part that we're going to look at this morning. And again, this is being written by a son who also is a husband at this point. And he's answering the question, okay, so what does mom deserve? What does mom deserve? What do all good, even flawed moms deserve? This is where we come into the passage. He says, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. So this first concept that he brings out is that her children rise up and call her blessed. That word rise is an interesting word. It's an expression that characterizes a formal activity of preparation for praise. It's a formal activity. It's meant to signal honor and respect. So you picture them, they're all around a table, probably a dinner table. And all of a sudden, the kids all formally stand up. And what's going on here in this passage is very akin to them standing up, looking at their mom, and them giving a standing ovation. Wow. Look at that. That's mom. Amazing. You know, it's the type of formal acknowledgement that maybe a judge would get as, you know, everyone's in the courtroom and waiting for things to get settled, and all of a sudden the judge walks into the room and everyone stands at attention because you need to honor his position, who he is. Or a different illustration, it's like being at a wedding and everyone's sitting there talking, and you know the groom's already up there and nobody's paying attention to the groom at all. He's just kind of up there, and the groomsmen are up there, but then the bridesmaids stop coming through, and all of a sudden people start paying a little bit more attention. And then the music changes and the bride walks through. And what are you supposed to do when the bride begins to walk through and walk up the podium? Everyone stands, right? There's this honoring that happens as everyone stands and turns around to face the bride. That's what's happening in this passage when it says her children rise up and call her blessed. There's this formal isn't she amazing? Isn't she amazing? It's meant to convey worth and honor and thanks and appreciation and respect with an action of standing up. And now that standing up, that action moves into words. Says, her children rise up and call her blessed. That word blessed means favored. Favored by God, favored by men. Mom, you are favored. You are amazing. You are absolutely amazing. The kids are telling the mom that she is favored, that she's amazing. And it's a state, understand that what they're doing here, it's not them looking at mom and saying, you know, all the things that you do, that's amazing. It's not about the things that mom does, though mom does a lot of things. They're calling her blessed. They're saying, you just being who you are is blessed. You are favored before God and before men. But it's not just the kids. It's not just the kids. Passage says, her husband also. Her husband also. I love how the writer, under the inspiration of God as he writes this, includes that little line because, you know, quite frankly, a lot of dads, a lot of men, you know, like to say, well, you know, I don't say the word I love you a lot, but I show my love through my actions. You know, show my love through my actions. And that should speak louder than words. Well, you should show your wife and your kids love through your actions, but also your words. And it's a both and. You should show your love both ways. And, you know, a lot of guys will say, I'm not good with words. Yeah, okay, fine. You're not good with words. That's okay. Say them anyway. Fumble through them. You need to as well stand up with the kids as an example to them. And you need to praise her as well. And this is what the dad says. We actually have, you don't know what to say? Well, you've got a line right here, folks. Got a line right here. This is what the husband says. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Well, that's a line, isn't it? That's a line. What the dad is saying as he's looking in the mom's eyes, he's basically saying, look, there are, granted, a lot of really great women in the world, but in my opinion, you are the best of the best. No one else even comes close in my eyes. You are the only one I see. That's what he's saying. So you better write that down. If you're not good with words, you just write that down. This is what he's saying. As the kids have now risen and they're given that standing ovation, and the dad has risen up and he's given a standing ovation, he's given a formal speech. This is who you are to me. This is who you are to me. And notice again, he says this in front of the whole family. Not privately, not, I'm embarrassed, I'm just going to say it to you. He says it in front of the kids as an example to them so that when they grow up and they get married someday, they understand that mom needs to be honored. Wives need to be honored by the kids and by the husband. But why? Why is mom so great? Why is mom so great? Because she does everything right? No. I think every mom here understands more than anyone else where you fail, right? You understand it. And you probably come down harder on yourself than anyone else could possibly do. It's not because you do everything right. Is it because you know how to do everything? Sometimes kids think so. Well, kids think you know how to do everything right. Teenagers think you can't do anything right, right? But that's not why they should stand and praise you either. Is it because you love perfectly? No. Is it because you never forget anything? No. It's not about any of those things. It's not about perfection at all. That's not why the mom is worthy to get a standing ovation and be praised. It's not about what you do. It's about who you are and who you're becoming. That's what it's about. Who you are and who you're becoming. As he concludes the entire book of Proverbs with this proverb, he says in verse 30, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." He says, look, a lot of us focus on the outward beauty, the outward charm, and we think, oh man, she must be amazing. And the writer of the Proverbs is saying, yeah. No, that's a mistake to just look at the outward form and to judge a person's worth based on the outside. Because what's on the outside could be covering really bad character, and eventually the outside is going to fade. The outside's going to fade. So what's the point? The point is what matters most. What makes mom truly great is what's on the inside, inner character, and specifically that she fears the Lord. Fears the Lord. That phrase, she fears the Lord, describes not a perfect mom, but a mom who is working on living for God and with God to be like God, allowing his character to shine in and through her. And this is so important. You have to understand that this is so important that mom shines the light of Jesus in her home to her husband and to her kids. Because you see, we look at God, and there are many descriptors of God throughout the Bible. Many, because the Bible is all about God and who he is. So they gives us tons of descriptions. But sometimes the ones that we focus on the most are pictures like that he's a mighty God, that he's a mighty warrior, and how big and strong, and we just picture this gigantic, I'm going to fall on my face and fear God. And by the way, that is one aspect of who God is. There are many descriptors throughout the Bible that talk about him as being mighty and glorious and majestic and all of those things. But then there are other descriptors in the Bible that talk about, for instance, God being like a mother hen, protecting and loving her little chicks, of taking her wings and just putting them around her kids and loving on them and protecting them. You see, there are also those descriptors all throughout the Bible that show that this is who God is too. And so, if our kids are going to really see a complete picture of God, a real complete picture of who God is, guess what? He wants to shine through dad, but he also needs to shine through mom. It's only through mom that our kids are going to see certain aspects of who God is, or not see them. that protective nature, that mother hen nature, that loving, I'll do whatever I can for you nature. That there's something that God wants to shine through mom, that you're just not going to get the same thing through dad. And so they need to see it in mom as mom chooses to fear the Lord. And when we see it, when we see those aspects of who God is uniquely through mom, it should cause us to stand up and to give a standing ovation, to praise her, to honor her. But ultimately, when we're doing that, we're honoring and praising the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who is shining in and through her. So, that's one aspect. All the kids and dad getting up at the dinner table in their home and showering praise. But it doesn't stop there. There's one more part to this passage here. Verse 31 again, give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. What the proverb writer is alluding to here are the city gates. And the city gates were basically in the city where everyone went to talk. If you wanted to talk, if you wanted to hang out, it's kind of the water cooler of the city. You go there, and that's where you're going to get the news. That's where you're going to get all the juicy gossip. That's where you're going to go to just talk about things. And so a lot of guys would show up in the city at the gate, and they would just spend hours there just jabbing away. Now, I have to imagine that probably more than a few husbands gathered there and kind of like, several thousand years later, gather together and it's a big complaint fest. Well, you won't believe what my wife did last night. You don't believe what she's not going to let me do. No. Well, you think that's bad. Let me tell you about my wife and what she's doing. And they're complaining back and forth and all of these things going on. What would happen? What would happen if in the midst of all of these guys trying to one-up one another on what their wife is doing? What would happen if just one husband came in there and said, oh, well, let me tell you about my wife. She's the most amazing, compassionate, loving wife that I could ever have. What would happen to those other guys? What are you talking about? All of a sudden, they are just struck as someone comes forward to praise their wife instead of complain about their wife. And that is exactly what's going on in this end part of the passage, is that moves from the home to the public. As the husband, and he's the one that would go to the gate, it's the men that would sit there and jabber, not the women. As the husband goes to speak the praise of his wife to anyone that will listen. And so there is a private honoring and standing and clapping, and then there is a public honoring and appreciation and clapping to say, my wife is amazing. And that is the honor and appreciation that mothers deserve, given from God. And so we're gonna move, and I'm done talking now. And what I would like to do is I want to give you two assignments to move into the day. Number one assignment you're going to do later in your own homes. I want to challenge the kids as well as the men to be able to stand up at the dinner table sometime today and to verbally give praise to the wife to verbally give praise to Mom and to let her know why you think she's so amazing. That's assignment number 1. Assignment number 2 you're going to do right now. Assignment number 2 is the public arena. We get the opportunity while we're here as we end our service to, if you're comfortable sharing, this is why my mom is so amazing. This is why my wife is so amazing. And for us to publicly hear it together in appreciation and honor of mothers. So, I'm going to ask somebody go down and see if the kids are ready, because I want them to be a part of this. Again, they need to hear it. They need to see it. So if we can get, if they're ready, if we can get them to come up.